Okay, so I think we've got a asparagus staging bug in KSP-2. I thought it might be just a display issue with displaying the fuel in the tanks relative to how much there was originally, but it seems like I'm seeing other comments that say maybe the ducting isn't working. So I'm going to return really quick to KSP-1 here and show my asparagus staging in KSP-1 so we can look at the way the fuel is displayed and how it works. Get that settled into our mind. I'm going to switch over to KSP-2 and build an asparagus stager and launch it, and we can look at what the differences are. So maybe that will give people a clue as to where to look to solve this bug. I'm hoping we can resolve this because I really like using asparagus staging. For those of you who don't know what asparagus staging is, let's go over this configuration of this rocket real quick. This is in KSP-1. Basically, what I have is 7 engines, and when we start, we're going to burn them all, and all of them have some fuel above them. And that's great. They all have the same amount of fuel, so if we didn't move any fuel around, they would all burn and they would all run out of fuel at the same time. And that's fine. This would be quite a lot of thrust, probably more than we want when we start to empty it, but quite a lot of thrust, and a decent amount of DV. But we can do better, because during the later stages of this, we are going to be hauling a lot of empty tank space, and the fuel could have fitted in a smaller space. So what we're doing is that while we're burning, so this tank and its pair on the other side, we're going to do these in pairs so that we don't get unbalanced rockets, keep everything balanced. This first pair, this is going to be the first one that we discard. So when we get down to where we have enough fuel so that the rest of them are full, we're going to discard these tanks. These are going to be empty. And the way we do that is we set up this fuel duct here. And it's too short for the graphic to really show well, but you can see that there's an arrow on it pointing from left to right, so that if there's space in the next tank, we are always going to be moving out of here into here. And we've done that all the way around. So this tank keeps this tank full, this tank keeps this tank full, and finally this tank flows into the middle. So during flight, all of the tanks are going to get topped up except the outermost one. And when we discard it, the rest of them are all going to be full. And same thing, we're going to burn the fuel in that tank and its partner. And when it's done, we're going to have just 3 tanks, and they're going to be full again, and those are going to burn. And then the outer 2 tanks are done, and it's going to be just left with the inner tank, and it's going to start out full. This is actually a development platform for a bunch of KOS work I'm doing, and I've got recordings of that if you're interested in looking at some KOS automation. Anyway, so let's go ahead and launch this. No, I don't want Jeb to fly this. Let's have Val fly this one, because Val is the new star of Kerbal Space Program. I think she's got personality. So we're going to launch. Now, because I'm doing development work on autopilot systems, this is entirely hands-off. So once I have selected a target, this launch is just going to happen. So we're going to rendezvous with what do we want to set for a rendezvous target? How about Grary's wreckage? So we're going to set him as a target. And for this development platform, that really mostly controls just it will try to launch into the same plane and so on. It's not a full rescue mission on this one. We're not going to worry about all the fancy stuff I've got set up for development. This is just to look at how the staging works. Now you notice that 2 of the fuel tanks are being drained faster. Each one of these shows the total fuel available to the engine, including from the tank that is draining. So boom, there's first staging, they went all back to full. Now the next 2 are burning down, they're all burning fuel, and when we discard these tanks, all the other tanks are going to go full. This is going to get to 2/3, and they're going to refill all the way. They're actually already full, we're just discarding the empty tank space. Boom, and we're full. And now we've got just the 3 engines burning, And the tanks on the outside are feeding fuel to the tank in the middle, which is staying full. You can see there that the tanks are staying full. And it shows some empty space because that tank could be drawing from the outside. So it sees the empty space there. So when this gets down low, this needs to go empty. We're going to jettison those tanks. And we'll back to the center tank, which will be full. And there we are. Now we're finally draining fuel out of the middle tank. We can see that that's just normal. So that's what asparagus staging looks like in KSP-1. That's correct operation with the fuel ducting able to keep the destination tanks full while the source tanks are being emptied out. So let's revert that to vehicle assembly. And now I'm going to switch over to KSP-2. Pardon, I've got a bit of a cough. I haven't actually built this. I've been fiddling around with asparagus staging, and I keep pulling it together and flying it and tearing it apart, and putting it together and flying it and tearing it apart. So we're starting over again, so I can make sure that you can see that I'm getting the ducting all set up properly. So we're starting out with the landing capsule here. I'm just going to really quick toss on some engines here. There's a bit of engine for us to do something in space somewhere, just to get us some payload. Let's see. Coupler. I'm not even looking at the Delta V over the... Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I had a larger rocket that I pruned down, so we're going to have to... There we go. So there's the stager, and there's that rocket. So now we go to the fuel tanks. And I'm going to put in that and an engine. Let's choose the same engine I was using the other one. So we still have the LVT-45 swivel, so we can use the same engine there. And I can see that this is picking up almost 2,000 delta V. It's not telling me what the thrust to weight ratio is. Oh. Now I have a big spreadsheet elsewhere that I can pump these numbers into and get back all the data, but it's not showing me the numbers that I want to see. I want to see thrust to weight. Now if I bring up the engineer's report, it will show the aggregate for the last stage that goes on. So that's almost acceptable. For building it one stage at a time, I can see what's going on the latest stage. That's good. What I can't see is what's going on as I add stages. So let's add a stage here. We're going to do a duplicate of this part here. I am now going to, let's see where to go. Separators, radial decoupler. We're going to put a radial decoupler on this thing. Two-way symmetry right here. Boom. Like that. Now before I put the fuel ducting on, let's make these the stages that I want to get rid of and drop that on there. I would go and put six-way symmetry on here, but I haven't figured out yet how to take apart and remove it from symmetry. So I don't see any way to remove this part from the symmetry. I can't put up a six-way symmetry and then break the symmetry. Well, wait a minute. Actually, let's try that. As long as I'm building the rocket. Let's grab this and let's say six-way symmetry. Like that. So that's how I want the parts to look in the end. But what I want to do now is separate out all the rockets are going to be burning all at once down at the bottom. And then I need to split out my separation stages. So these guys are going to be the last ones to burn. Can I break it out from here? Oh, I can't even see which one is which. Yeah, okay, so I can't take a symmetric build and separate out which decoupler is doing when. So we're going to have to go with a two-way symmetry, which means, of course, that the other as I add these three things that should be symmetric with each other, they may not be right on. Anyway, so we're going to be stuck with that. Let's keep this assembly. This is going to be the same thing that I'm going to use for the other two pairs. And we go back to fuel tanks. And we can close these guys down. Now the fuel line, I'm going to make it kind of long so we can see what's going on. I'm going to be taking from these tanks and putting into the middle. So there's our fuel ducting. We can see the arrows are pointed the correct direction, so I didn't mess that up this time. I have done that before. So now, well, that guy can stay in 4, and the other twos can go to 3 and 2. Okay. So now, if we look at it, we see that, well, first of all, the delta V is wrong here. We should have some delta V for this stage, and then when we blow those separators, we should now have the remaining delta V for the middle. And that should be the same as if we were like this. So, okay, I remove this, and suddenly we have no delta V. So something, yeah, so the delta V display in the VAB is not working right. So there's bug number 1. The delta V in the staging area in the VAB is not updating. Fortunately, like I said, I have spreadsheets that I use. Let's put our fuel ducting back. Okay, so now we've got this. Now, because I'm not getting delta V's here, I have to go to my spreadsheet to do any computations for delta V. And that kind of, yeah, that's just what it is. Let's put the next pair on. I'm going to see if I can line this up fairly well. That's wrong. I'm going to need a marker real quick. Control surface. How about a nice wing, small, 6-way symmetry. Oh, good God. Is that really the smallest stock wing? Okay, well, I suppose, yeah, so I would like to have a smaller wing surface that I can add really quickly for this sort of thing, but that's what it is. I pick up this assembly again, and now I can put it here. Oh, and this guy is 2-way symmetric. Line it up with that, and line it up vertically with the other guys. Maybe, tell you what, I'm not going to be able to line up perfectly, so let's stagger it down a little bit as kind of a visual aid saying this guy jettisons before that guy. Okay. And notice that now we have all 4 of these here. Well, what I want to do is take these guys. So now we have 2 and 2. And they are reverse ordered. So that guy, and that guy, and that guy. So now we are going to jettison that before that. And now the fuel duct. And this fuel line will go nice and long so I can verify what it's pointing. So that's a weird one. Let's try that again. I'm going from here. And I'm going to just do it all the way up to the top. So now we see that this guy will keep this guy full. Same ductwork as in KSP-1, except I've just, I've placed it slightly differently so we can make sure that we can see the arrows. Okay, and now we're going to grab a copy of this and fit it on here. And again, I'm not going to be able to line it up perfectly with either one, so instead I will put it a little bit lower. It's kind of a visual aid saying, again, this guy is going to stage before this guy. And now we can grab this fuel duct. Okay, that's weird. I grabbed the bottom end of an unconnected fuel duct and it decided to put it in the wrong place. So let's reduct these. This duct remains here. That's good because that one would be kind of hard to reach at this point. Duct from there to there. Still pointed the right way. Duct from here up to here. And that's still pointed the right way. So now I need to split these guys off. And just by chance I grabbed the right one. I had a 50-50 chance. So this will destage first, this will destage second, that will destage third, and then fourth we'll get that one up the top. And there's our engines, and they're all kind of staggered, so the bottom ones are going to go first, bottom, and then this guy, and so on. Okay. Now the wings, this guy is kind of tricky to fly without wings, so we're going to go three-way symmetry and put some wings in here. And hopefully I didn't set up the ducting to make this impossible. And hopefully the wing doesn't prevent the ducting. Oh! Does the wing prevent the ducting from working? I hope not. You know what? That's a possibility. I am going to see if I can adjust these ducts so they don't clip into the wing. Okay, that's set, and unfortunately it is still touching the wing there. And I would need to put it right directly on the bottom of this guy. Can I do that? Well, if I pick that up, it's going to reverse the direction of it. And I'm doing it three-way symmetric. Okay, so I blew the ducting again. Bug number 2. Trying to put the ducting in place is just difficult. Anything that could make this easier would be welcome. Okay, so that leaves the wings in place so I can be sure to not mess with my wings. Let's just bring the ducting across from the top here real quick. So the wings are down low, and we are going to go two-way symmetric. Okay, so that looks like it's got the ducts starting at the right place. And I'm going to draw it up a little bit vertically so we can see it. Okay, so there's our... That doesn't look like it connected there. Well, we're definitely connecting. Well, let's see.
There's a blue gun here.
Yeah, put a little bit off to the side. Just a little bit. Yeah, that gap between the duct connector and the tank, that worries me. And it has two of them. Guys, come on. Okay, just making sure we don't have any little nubbins of duct sitting here in our fuel tank area or utility, so make sure that we don't have any spare parts hanging around from all this fiddling I'm doing with the duct work. Okay, now let's try this again. Fuel line. I don't think that the ducts are actually connecting properly visually to the tank. There's a gap in there. Anyway, there's the ductwork here. That's as good as I can do it. So if that's not connecting, then ducts are failed. But if ducts work at all, and I believe they do something, then that's good. So now we need to make our other duct connections, and keeping with, we're doing it up high and we're doing it fairly short. There's a connection. That is too short to see an arrow. I'm just going to assume that it went in the right way. If I put the source followed by the destination, that should be correct. Bug number 3. Make sure there's always at least one arrow showing on a duct when you place it. You could put an arrow in the middle there. You really could. So, in theory, if we've done everything right, this should now have asparagus staging, this tank emptying, then this tank emptying, then this tank emptying, all filling to the middle. And that'll launch, and it will sit badly on the launch areas. Let's give ourselves a launch clamp. Can I just put a launch clamp on here like this? Yes, I can. That's kind of close, but it should be okay. Let's put the launch clamp up here. Actually, let's get the engines going and then release the launch clamp. This means that when they do their countdown, they will count down and light the engines. I'm going to have to stage manually to discard the launch clamp. Now, the other launch was all automated, so I had the automated stager doing everything for me. We'll just have to manually hit the spacebar at the right time. Hey, back to actually playing KSP instead of watching my automation play it. Okay, we could do that. Enhancement request. Allow me to make this guy longer. Okay. And maybe, well, for instance, you see people on the Apollo missions that go up the gantry crane and out. So the launch clamp, like a gantry crane, spaced in there big enough for Kerbal to walk and joining up with the hatch. I don't know, maybe that would be a cool thing. Enhancement request, though, low priority. Okay, so there we go. We are way too tall. Let me see if I can... among other things, we're also not centered. I don't know if this automatically centers on the launch pad when I go out or not. That's pretty close. So I'm going to save this off over my Asparagus 1 that I was working on. This was just rerun. This is my new Asparagus 1 craft. It's got no struts. It's going to be all sorts of springy and wobbly, but what the heck. Let's go launch this. And now we can look at what's happening to our fuel as we launch. Oh, and over here you notice that KSP is so confused. I wonder if I load... no, let's load my thing that I just saved. Okay, so if I load it, it recalculates I am not sure. These numbers don't seem to match up. Maybe these numbers are what we get with whatever error is happening in the fuel ducting. But we'll see. Let's make sure we check our staging. So there's our first thing to go away. And then this guy, and that guy, and that guy, and there. And then this guy fires, and then the parachute. So this staging is correct. Engineer says this has 2.9 thrust. This particular launch configuration can handle a larger payload. Yeah, so yeah. We're going to get 4 Gs right off the bat. That's okay. Our total delta V down here claims it's 3955 meters per second. I don't recall whether that number matched up with my spreadsheet or not. I didn't gather my wet and dry weights as we came through here, so I don't really know. I haven't pumped this into a spreadsheet to get the DV numbers. What we're interested in, though, is to watch the way the fuel flows or doesn't flow. Okay, another bug. For some reason, when I go out to the landing pad, I am left in a view mode that is not ground auto. So, chase, horizon, celestial, capture, body, auto ground. This is the one I like to use for launching. And what I'm noticing is we have a gap in the rocket. That's probably because the joint is springy and I am suspended from above. So there is stuff out on the net that says what to tweak to change the springiness constant of these guys. I'm hoping that this doesn't, compromise my launch. Let's launch this. We're going to watch the fuel here. What we should see, what we saw before, was that 2 of the engines went down fast and the rest of them went down varying speeds. And when we jettisoned them, everybody went back to the top. And let's see if that's what happens here. I'm going to skip the countdown. I actually have KSP-2's audio turned off. Oh, I forgot to put my SAS on. There we go. SAS is on. I am going to steer into prograde. So this will do a gravity turn whether I like it or not. And fuel is going down. So far, I'm sure we could freeze this and look at the numbers and figure out whether the fuel is flowing around or not. This doesn't look right to me. The engines that should be draining slower are draining faster than I expected. Okay, so we're getting down to the end on these 2 engines. And I need to be not too quick on the draw. In fact, I am going to hit pause here. So before I stage, we had 7 tanks. If we were keeping all of them full, then this engine should be seeing 5/7 capacity. And it's seeing less than 50%. So this tells me, this display confirms we are not moving fuel. We actually burned more fuel on the outside tank. We burned fuel that should have gone to the next tank. But some fuel did go. If we weren't doing any of it, they all would have come down levelly. So some fuel is being moved by the ducting. Some fuel, not all of it. So I am going to hit the space bar. Oh, I need to unpause first. Okay, so the first 2 are away. And if the ducting had been working properly, these all would be completely full now, but they're not. So this means that we were not getting everybody refilled, and we should have been able to discard those first 2 empty tanks much sooner in the process. So we unpause. And we let it continue. And the second pair goes. So with the second pair empty, we again should have seen everybody jump up to full. 3.2 and 8 is what we have per pair. So this guy is still saying I have 1 ton out of 6.4 and quarter ton out of 1.6. This is 1.25 tons out of 8. It should be more than that. It should be 4 tons out of 8. So this should have been at 50%. So we're going to stage and unpause and repause again. So yeah, look at this. We're sitting at 25%. We got 25% of this guy full rather than all of it. And the guy in the middle is sitting at 50%. He's only 50% full. So the ducting is not bringing us back properly. The ducting is not keeping us full. And I'm wondering if that's because the ducting, we've got 2 ducts going into the destination. Wondering if it's only drawing some fraction of what it should be. Well, that's for the KSP-2 devs to figure out. So we unpause, and we're going to do the rest of this. Now, this I would have, if this were going for an orbit, I would have been a more aggressive gravity turn and so on. And there's my last one. Now notice here, I staged, and my center tank was magically full when I did the last stage. Now this is why I thought it was display bug. So I'm wondering if the center tank is being kept full, but the other tanks are not being kept full because they have outbound ducts. So maybe asparagus staging doesn't work that well. So the other thing we can try is, what if I need more ducts? What if the duct has a certain volume of fuel that can handle, and if I've got one of these exterior asparagus stages with 1 duct coming in, 1 duct going out, maybe it just passes the fuel on through and it doesn't keep any for itself because its incoming fuel is running at the same rate as its outgoing fuel. So I would have to rewind the stream to look at the numbers, but maybe this is keeping the middle up and going. Okay, and YouTube is telling me I'm having a hell of a time with streaming, probably because I got KSP-1 and KSP-2 going, and OBS, and streaming. But I'm hoping this is actually getting some recording done. Let's revert to VAB. I am going to double and triple the ducting on the other outer stages so that these guys have 1 more duct incoming than they have outgoing. And we'll see if that makes a difference. If it does make a difference, then we have a hypothesis that it's based on a capacity of the ducts. So, let's see here. This guy requires a separate, an additional duct. So fuel. Do I have it in? I might have had that in my favorites already. Nope. Fuel tanks, fuel line. So we're going to put a second duct here. And symmetry was not on. Oh, okay, I can put the ducts with symmetry off. I just can't change where the staging is. Okay. So second duct here. And this guy needs a second duct and a third duct. Okay, so experiment. See if this changes how the numbers work. Now this may be something where we need to put the video side by side from the 2 runs. I am no good with video editors, so it might just be you look at one run and take a screenshot, look at the other run, take a screenshot, and you see how things are flowing to see if these numbers make any difference. I don't know anything at all about the code underneath this. I don't know if this is actually going to make a difference, but my intuition, were I to be attacking this as a software engineer, the way I would do it would be looking at this to immediately go and see if there is a limited fuel flow through the ducting, see if there's some computation where if you've got inbound and outbound ducting, it doesn't refill me along with refilling my outbound. Let's go launch this. So it put me back in auto orbital again. Back to our auto ground. I'm going to stage this manually. Okay, so the gantry is just tapping me enough so that this is actually, it's the beginnings of a gravity turn. I don't know, it's a bump turn. So we're coming down. It still feels like the ones that aren't, we got the fast one, but the slow ones are coming down faster than I expected still. Let's see. So get to here. Come on, you can do it. I'm going to pause just before and just after staging so we can look at the numbers again, so people don't have to try to seek to a specific frame. Okay, I caught that fairly soon after these guys ended. So with the first guy emptied, we should be seeing this at 5/7, this at 4/6, 2/3, and this at 1/3. So 1/3, 2/3, 5/7. That's not what we're seeing. So adding ducts didn't change things much. So 0.6 out of 1.6, so we are at less than half on a tank that should be, if everything worked, it should be full. It's less than half full. This guy is just over half full. So, okay, I staged an extra time there. That was, okay, that blew it. Let's watch this launch again. This is again with 1 duct, 2 ducts, 3 ducts. Okay, please steer into prograde so you don't crash while I'm looking at the fuel. So given what I'm seeing here, I'm wondering if there's some limit to how the duct is moving fuel around. And it's not something where I'm seeing multiple ducts making it move faster. I would have to compare the streams to see if there's actually any difference. I'm not going to pause at this time. I think we can just watch the numbers and get a feel for it, because the numbers are so far from correct. There's the first set. Now, too bad I've got the sound turned off, because I can hear when it's time to stage. You can hear the engines flaming out. Very nice. By the way, sound design, perfect. Up for the sound design. And the second pair is away, and again they didn't fill, and their results are much lower than expected, and much lower than I can account for. And the final pair goes away, leaving us full. So at least we're getting the center tank filled. Now I'm wondering if we need to do a modified asparagus where we have the center tank, we have a pair feeding into the center, and then we have the other 4 all feeding into those 2. So it's a kind of a cross between an onion and a asparagus. So we have 7 firing, then we have 3 firing, then we have 1 firing. So just for funsies, I probably should have let this just boost this straight up, and we could have compared altitudes to see if any of these changes are changing our ending delta V by knowing what altitude we got to. But I didn't. Let's revert to VAB, please. So I'm going to change it up a bit. We are going to go with 124 rather than 1222. And the way we're going to do that is that, revert to VAB. We're just going to reverse the ducting on one of them. Well, not reverse. I'm going to take the first pair that we dropped, and I'm going to have it feed, instead of the second pair, it's going to feed into the third pair, and then we're going to drop the first and second pairs at the same time because they're both going to be out at the same time. So that is this set of 3, which becomes a nothing burger. And because I really don't want to use this doubling up thing, okay. So, this guy feeds into this guy, so now we need this guy feeding into here. So this feeding into there. And let's see, fuel. Fuel line. There and there. Now, this staging and this staging both happen at the same time. Let's make sure. Okay, this did not get ducted. Apparently, I didn't have symmetry turned on. I will just go ahead and do that. So we now have this into here, this into here, this into here, this into here, those two into the middle, and we're done. And now we just need to unify these stages like that. So configuration is like 7531 or 421, depending on how you want to count. Now let's see what the fuel thing looks like. Auto ground. So this number is changing each time, and I haven't looked at what it is. Now it's saying we're less. In theory, I think this should give us less delta V because we are carrying more empty tank up. Let's skip the countdown and disconnect and fly prograde. And we should see is 8 of these going down together, and then 4, and then 2. And if this was KSP-1, these ones that are going down slower would be even slower, but they're not this time, so yeah, it is what it is. Also, we got bumped further over this time, so I'm glad I'm not checking final altitudes or anything. We really should have the launch clamps attached to the outermost engines. Probably 6 launch clamps on this one. Okay, almost done. And flame out. Here we go. And this doesn't jump up. So, yeah, it did not jump up to full, which it should have, and it didn't. So I'm not seeing that the fuel lines, the fuel capacities, I'm not seeing that this changed in the best way. No, we did end up with full in the middle again, but that we did that before. So something is weird about tanks that have incoming and outbound fuel. If there's sufficient inbound fuel, it is not filling up this tank along with the next tank. So there it is. Like I said, my intuition as a software engineer would be to look at the code and make sure that it is evaluating the fuel ducting starting from the destination. So you have the middle tank, and it's got 2 inbounds, so you refill it from the other ones. And after you do that, you go to the other ones and say, well, they've got inbound, so they refuel from the outer ones, and so on. This risks, of course, if somebody puts the... What do you do if the ducts are in a circle? If the ducts are in a circle, yeah. The other thing is that on KSP-1, I would also check the fuel priority of these things. I don't see any way to adjust priority. Oh, that's coupling. I don't see any way of adjusting the FTXs or the priority of the fuel tanks in any way. So I have no other knobs I can twist on this. There is probably a way to set up... I saw somebody say using action groups to transfer fuel manually. Certainly you could do that, but you would have to do it repeatedly, or you'd have to say, well, we are down to 5/7 of our initial fuel, so we're going to drain our exterior tanks so we can drop them. So math. Anyway, that's an awful lot of work to put on every user, when what we really should be doing is having the fuel ducts transferring his fuel as much as possible, as fast as possible. And I think that's it for this stream. Not a short one. Lots of whining about fuel ducting and asparagus staging not being right. I will leave it to other people to do the pure onion staging. I am not interested in pure onion because I rely on asparagus staging to get the most delta V out of my systems. And without asparagus, I will not be efficient at this kind of staging. I would have to go to the normal Apollo configuration where you have a small guy, and then a bigger guy, and then a bigger guy, and then a really bigger guy. I don't like long strung out rockets with one engine at a time like that. So that does it for me. I will be going back to working on my KSP-1 automation stuff, and we'll see more drops on that stream as I get more things automated. And KSP-2, when I work out how I want to do more flights, I will do that. I did get a successful MUN landing out of a pure vertical stack. Not really happy with it. It used up a lot more fuel than I liked. I had a hard time doing a landing because I suck at doing hover slams. But I got it working with some friends giving me some tips that turned out to be almost but not quite correct. They build rockets that have higher TWRs on the MUN than I do, so I had to adjust the numbers a little bit. So I had lower thrust, so I had to start burning higher up than they thought. Anyway, got a decent burn down, got a decent liftoff from MUN, and managed to get into orbit just inside the atmosphere of Kerbin before I totally ran out of fuel. And this was from a rocket that had, by my estimate, 1,500 extra delta V. So I wasted a lot of fuel during that run. Anyway, we'll see about that. Oh, and the big bug report that I really want to say, it's a big enhancement report, but a high priority enhancement. Can I please have KSP recognize inputs from my throttle and stick? Because I want to use the throttle to do my hover slams. I want to use the stick to get a nice smooth grav turn, and bouncing on the keyboard is not my favorite way of doing that. I don't know if there's any way to steer with the mouse. I know that I can adjust throttle with the mouse. That's fine. I can fine control throttle from the mouse. That works perfectly. It's awkward, and it still means that I am bouncing around on the keyboard to try to keep myself pointed along the gravity turn when it's not quite exactly programmed. Notice this one, I heeled over very early, much farther than I normally would. It was like a 10-degree tilt right off the launch pad, and still look at what the gravity turn got me. This was just firing prograde, firing pure prograde. Right, I am on an escape trajectory, so it's not going to show me. But yeah, firing pure prograde, it got me way too steep. And yeah, anyway, so there we are. I'll probably record you some fun flying around later. See you in the next one.